All right. So thank you so much for being here. Good evening. I'm Allison Scola. I'm the owner and curator of Experience Sicily, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about all of that in a moment. I'm going to first um, share my screen and get the presentation up. So just a moment to do that. And let's see here. Let's see. Okay. And from the beginning. Okay. So are you able to see the presentation? Yes, Mark, you can see it? Okay, good. All right. And that's your whole screen, I hope. Okay. So, all right, excellent. So, welcome once again. So I'm Allison Scola. I'm the owner and the curator of Experience Sicily. And I've been leading tours in Sicily as Experience Sicily for more than 10 years now. And my background is that I am half Sicilian American. My grandparents were born in Sicily over 100 years ago. And I live in Sicily now, although I'm in New Jersey as we speak. So I'm between New York and Sicily, and New Jersey and Sicily. And I travel in Sicily 6 months a year. So I am on the roads, both being driven and driving myself. I sleep in the hotels with clients because I lead tours. I eat in the restaurants. I hike on the trails. I know the guides. I've done most of the excursions that I recommend and program for my clients and my small group tours. So that gives you a sense of who I am. So I'm on the ground. So so just to explain, my experience is real. Okay, so I was in Sicily. I came back to New York, New Jersey last Monday, and I was in Sicily from this particular visit or time there. I was there since August 16th. So just to give you, I ran 4 tours of the island. So just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from. Okay, so there I am in the market in Ortigia, and so here we go. Okay, so first of all, I want to know a little bit about you guys. So my first question is, have you been to Sicily? So I'm gonna launch a poll, okay? And I want you should be able to answer the question. Do you see the poll on your screen? Are you able to see that? I see that some people are answering it, so that's good. So of those you are here, I want to hear, have you been to Sicily? Okay, and if you'd like to, in the chat, you can write down well, you can tell me your favorite place if you want. I'm curious always to hear about from you. And um, hello from Bermuda. That's very cool. Someone from Bermuda is here. Very cool. So, all right. So it looks like I have answers, and 60% of you have been to Sicily and 40% have not. Okay, so that helps me also understand to whom I'm speaking, so we can you know get the I can really dig in now to some details because so many of you have been there. All right. So meanwhile, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Experience Sicily. So we are a boutique tour operator, specialized in Sicily. I lead small group tours. So 12 people and fewer are the tours. And right now, up till tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m., that's December 3rd, 2024, we're offering a special for an early incentive discount of $300 off per person on all of our small group tours. And I'm going to get into what those are a bit later. I also design custom itineraries for independent travelers. So if you and your spouse want to go, or you and a friend, or you and 2 friends, or 3 couples, or whoever it is, we can design a custom creative itinerary for you and your fellow travelers. I also do small group itineraries for and also tour management. So if you need a tour leader, because around 8 people or more, you can decide if you want to have a tour leader or not. Sometimes 10 people go without a tour leader. But that's something we can discuss too. So if you have a small group of 12 people or 14 people that you want to bring a family, we can design that tour according to your dates, your interests, your budget, and then have a tour leader helping you for that tour. Also, very important is a lot of us have heritage in Sicily, and so we will help you do a little bit of heritage research in order to um, design a heritage day for you. So if you have some preliminary information about your ancestors, maybe you've done in genealogy with ancestry.com or familysearch.com, maybe you've hired a genealogist, that's great. And we can take that information and then design a whole heritage experience for you, at least one day, if not more. And who knows, we can often find some living relatives if it's a small village. Bigger towns like Palermo, Messina, that's a little more difficult, but and that would require a real genealogist to do that. But we can do some preliminary heritage research for you for your trip. I also do professional consultation on an itinerary you reserve. So if you want to schedule time with me, it's a fee based on how many days you are traveling, but that is something that I do over the phone. And then I provide you with an itinerary and details of how to book that itinerary. And then from there, you can go book everything yourself, negotiate fees, pay directly to the suppliers, etc. So that's something we do. I also host a cannoli crawl in New York City. I'm going to be having a couple, actually, I have three this month. The one this week is sold out, but I have two more coming up at the end of December and I think one date in March. So keep your eye out for that if you're in the New York area, or if you're not, come for the weekend and go for the cannoli crawl. It's a lot of fun, history and food tour. You learn a lot about New York City history and Italian American history, and of course, everything you never knew you could know more about the cannoli. And then, of course, stateside gatherings and online Sicily inspired events, and lectures and articles. And I do a lot of social media around Sicily. So, um, I do things like Santa Lucia. I'm doing a Santa Lucia luncheon this weekend in New York City on Sunday because Santa Lucia is coming up December 13th, and I'm very devoted to her. I do a wonderful St. Joseph's Day gathering as well in New York City, as well as I'm doing a lecture in Westchester at the Westchester Italian Cultural Center, and that's going to be on December 12th. So keep your eye out for that. We're going to have arancine and cuccia, so traditional foods for Santa Lucia, and that's going to be a wonderful event too. So we do a lot of those. So you want to get on our mailing list, and by being in tonight's call, you will be put on our mailing list. And so every a month or so, I send out emails about the upcoming events, and you can stay tuned with us. So meanwhile, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me and my team. This is Capozziverano. This is 10 minutes from where I now am living in Sicily. This is where my grandfather was born. And not only am I in Sicily, between Sicily and New York, but I also have a team in Sicily, and that is Giuseppe Shorka and Valeria Signorino. And the two of them help me with all the logistics on the Sicily side. So there are Sicily insiders. They live in Termini Imerese. And then also I have my team here in New York City area, Elizabeth and Anna. So we have a team here on the U.S. side as well. This is my family and some friends in Sicily with me. So there you go. I am really embedded there. Meanwhile, I want to know more about you. So let's talk about who here has Sicilian heritage. And I think I might have a poll for that, but maybe not. And you might just need to um, type into the chat. Let me see. Let's see. Yes, okay. Here, I'm going to launch the poll and you can answer if you have Sicilian heritage or not. And then, of course, I want to hear from you about, where your heritage is from. So you can write that into the chat. What town did your family originate from? So about 56% of you have Sicilian heritage. And then, let's see, 60 to 40 again. It's looking like, let's see if that changes anything. But if you want to write in the chat and tell me where you have family, that would be, or where you think you have ancestry, that would be cool too. I'd love to hear it. Okay. Alcamo, Palermo, Menfi, right? Okay, so Western Sicily, that's great. That's excellent. So you might have some Arab blood. Santa Margherita del Belice, awesome. Yes, and I think that's Mark, of course. Trabia, which is near where I live. Trabia is beautiful. And Trabia, Zoe, is where we have documentation of the first macaroni factory in Sicily. So that's a pretty cool thing about Trabia. Salaparuta, yes, very big no news there. Of course, Mark, you know Salaparuta too, and that is where the 1968 earthquake was centered near there. And then Castellammare del Golfo, one of my favorite places in Sicily is Castellammare del Golfo for sure. Let's see, you have to ask your brother. Yes. But grandparents are from northern part of Sicily. Okay, ask your brother, find out because that information we can uh we can do a lot with that. It once I know the town, I have a lot of ideas about, why your grandparents left or why your ancestors left. So you know. All right, so again, we have 60-40. 60% of you have Sicilian heritage and 40% do not. So, okay, that helps me too. All right, so let's keep talking about this amazing place. So, what are we going to be doing this evening? So, I'm going to tell you why Sicily is spectacular. I'm going to give you highlights of a Sicily tour, talk about when to visit, how best to navigate the island, because I know these are all your questions. Um, the ideal length of a visit to Sicily, making your trip remarkable. Like, what are those cool things to do? And introduce you a little bit to Sicilian cuisine because I know that is really one of the biggest draws. We have a joke amongst my colleagues in Sicily that about tourists, and we say the Germans come to swim, the French come to walk, and the Americans come to eat. So so people say to me, "Oh, Allison, what should I bring with me when I go to Sicily? What should I pack?" And I say, "No, no, no. It's you should be hungry when you come, and you should bring an empty stomach." So for sure, it's just impossible not to be overfed all the time. The food is amazing, and people want to share their food with you, and share their products with you because it is an agricultural place. And so, by nature of being an agricultural place, food production is so important. So they want you to taste their cheese, they want you to taste their bread, their pasta that was made with the wheat from their wheat fields. I mean, it's amazing stuff. So anyway, so yeah, we'll talk all about cuisine. So, again, to give you some background about Sicily, it is the largest island in the Mediterranean. Okay, so this is also important to know. It's the island off the toe of Calabria of the peninsula of Italy. It is the size of Massachusetts, so it's very large. I want to make that clear. People think, oh, it's an island. How big could it be? It is big. It is. Think about going from Cape Cod to Lenox to Tanglewood in one day. It's not possible to enjoy Boston, Cape Cod, and then Tanglewood in the same couple days. You need a lot of time to be in Boston, be on Cape Cod, enjoy all the things Cape Cod has to offer, drive across, which is very easy in Massachusetts, and then get to Tanglewood, Jacob's Pillow, all the things in the Berkshires. So Sicily is that size, except that it doesn't have great highways. It doesn't have easy roads. You know why? Because there are 5 mountain ranges in Sicily, and actually roads are kind of a new thing. They didn't really have a lot of roads until until a couple hundred years ago. Seriously, they used the inland rivers that existed and now are drying up, and they had mountain paths and cow paths, so it's a fascinating place for so many reasons, and it's not easy to navigate. And so that's another thing when I design a trip, or I advise you on a trip, I really look at how navigating the island and what you should do. So here it is, the largest island. Look now when you look at it in terms of the Mediterranean, and this is a Google map, I think, or a map from the internet. But when you even just look at it, I mean, just put it in part of Italy, and you can see how big it is. All right, so it's quite large. And once let's talk about its history because being in the center of the island, it has been conquered by, I don't want to say everyone because the Chinese aren't there. I mean, now they are, but 3,000 years ago. But being where it is, everyone in the Mediterranean wanted to have their control over this island because when you control this island, you can control the Mediterranean Sea basin. The other thing about it is it's rich in natural resources, so many natural resources. And so, also, that's very important to consider when you're talking about people and survival and where people want to be. So Sicily was hot. It was the place to be. So here it is in the middle of the Mediterranean. And we talk about, we're going to go back to like the 8th century BCE, which I say is before Common Era. Okay. We talk in academic terms here. So you can see how close Greece is. And imagine getting into a boat in 735 BCE and going west, and you're going to hit Sicily. And so the Greeks had been up to this point trading with Sicily, of course, and we have lots of history of it, but they hadn't set a town. They hadn't decided to put their flag down until 738, 735 BCE. And our first town that they established is Giardini Naxos, which is really Taormina, if you're familiar with that, and we'll talk about where that is. And then, meanwhile, we have another population, the Phoenicians. You might remember the Phoenicians because they created the alphabet that we use. They created the idea of writing with letters and phonetically spelling words using those letters. And that's a cool thing. The Phoenicians were quite advanced. They were advanced boat builders, which is something really important during this period. And again, we're back in the 700s BCE, and they also could navigate the seas better than anyone else. And so they found their way to Sicily as well. So you have these two powers, the Greeks and the Phoenicians. And the Phoenicians then established a town in Tunis, which we wasn't called Tunis or Tunisia at the time. Tunisia is what we call it today. But here, you can't see my pointer, but where Tunisia is, that is Carthage, and that is where Carthaginians became. So Phoenicians, after some time, established Carthage, where Tunis is today. They became, like British became Americans after landing in New York and changing New Amsterdam into New York. They became Americans over time. So did the Phoenicians become Carthaginians. So Sicily then becomes split between these two cultures, being in the middle. And so there was a constant fight between these two cultures who controlled what rivers. And when we look at the maps from the ancient Mediterranean, going back to 500 BCE, okay, and I know you can sort of put your head in there. The right side, we have ancient Greece in 500 to 300 BCE, and you can see how much the Greeks controlled in the Eastern Mediterranean. And they controlled a lot of Sicily, the whole East Coast and a lot of South Coast and part of the North Coast. But then when you look on the left side of the map and we took it what the Carthaginians were doing, and now you can see where Carthage was, you can see that the Carthaginians controlled a very large part of Sicily in Western Sicily, Northwestern Sicily, and then until the Straits of Gibraltar, because they could navigate the seas and all that North African coast. And our story starts from there, because from there, then, and still today, I will tell you, we have this fun argument in Sicily about rice balls, which is one of our favorite street foods. We call them on the west side of the island, the Palermo side, which is Carthaginian, we call them arancina. They're feminine. The eastern side of Sicily, where the Greeks were and where Catania is and Mount Etna, they call them arancino. They're masculine. And we have this friendly argument between rice balls, what to call them and what the best recipe is of this food. And I am convinced that this argument goes right back to Carthaginian and Greek times. So it runs deep. This history that I'm pointing out to you now runs deep. And when you understand this, then you can start unfolding the rest of Sicilian history. So we talk about this all the time in terms of the dominations, and this is what makes traveling in Sicily so fascinating, is all of the different dominations who brought their cultures and spread their cultural ideas and their intellectual ideas and their artistic ideas through this island's history over 3,000 years. So yes, we had some pre-Greek and pre-Phoenician peoples, the Elami, the Sicani, and the Siculi people. And then we move into the Phoenician Carthaginian period with the Greeks also establishing Giardini Naxos in 735. We have a very, very important period. The Romans, divided and conquered between the Phoenicians and the Carthaginians. The Carthaginians and the Greeks. And the Romans came in. They wanted Sicily. They needed a breadbasket. They needed to feed the Roman Empire. And Sicily being what it is in terms of the natural resources, they knocked down all the trees and they planted wheat fields and they used the trees to build their boats. The Romans came and lived and dominated Sicily for 600 years. And for better or for worse, and probably for worse when you talk to most Sicilians, because the Romans were not so kind. And just to give you an idea about this, um, they spoke Latin, right? The common people in Sicily never learned Latin. They continued to speak their version of Greek or what became an ancient Sicilian, and very few people, only the nobility spoke Latin. 600 years of rule. And so gives you an idea of that they basically subjugated the Sicilian people, made them slaves or serfs, and then ruled it for their benefit. And so that gives you an idea of how the Romans lived in Sicily. Go on from there, Christianity becoming the official religion of the empire in 380 Common Era. So that's what CE means, Common Era, or AD. Okay. And then we go from there. We have the Vandals, the Goths, the Ostrogoths. We have a Byzantine period. It was very long and also very parochial in terms of religion. Eastern Christian Church. It's a very important distinction. Then we have the Arab period, which for us in Sicily, we have a very proud Arab heritage because we're talking a pre-Islam that we know today. So this Arab period, which is North African tribes, the Aghlabids, the Berbers, a bunch of different types of Arabs that than we know from modern times. These Arabs brought irrigation, they brought sugarcane, they brought rice paddies, they brought mulberry trees and silkworms and a silk industry. They brought citrus that we didn't have, so much good stuff. Sugar alone, we have them to thank for. So this is a very prosperous period for Sicily, especially because administratively the island really functioned. They also did not have a slavery kind of thing going on in the island. Um, we had small farms and small producing farms, which is very different from what happens once the Normans come. So the Normans were already in Bari and in Puglia and moving their way across the south. And the Vatican saw how successful they were conquering the south and also Christianizing in the Latin Roman Church, okay, the Latin Christian Church. And the Vatican loved what the Normans were doing and said, hey guys, do you want divine right? Do you want to become kings? We can do that for you. Go into Sicily and you do what you can do in Sicily, and we'll give you the power of king. We have that power to do that. And so that is what motivated the Normans. They were very good mariners, very good military minds. And it took them some 30 years to take Sicily from the Arabs. But by 1090 or so, they ruled the island. And what they found, because of the Arab population, but also there was a Byzantine Greek thing still going on, and English was in the mix. There's a lot of things going on in Sicily. Again, the Normans were very smart. They realized that they walked into a multicultural society. And instead of, and also there was 7 to 10% Jewish population at this time. And so again, we're talking about 1060 to 1090 Common Era. And so when you have that, the Normans bring a very intellectual idea of how to rule this place, which has so many cultures. And this is for Sicily a real renaissance. Roger II is my favorite king. I would love to have dinner with him. He's the guy I would have dinner with. If I could have any dinner with anyone from history, it would be him. And then his grandson, Frederick II. These two were extremely forward thinking. They ran into a lot of issues with the Vatican and a lot of palace intrigue with nobility, but at the same time, they had a very forward thinking concept of ruling a multicultural society that we have a lot to learn from even today. And then what they also brought, and we have William I and William II to thank for this, and those are again Roger II's son and grandson, and then Frederick II is Roger II's grandson. What we have to thank them for is the Arab Norman architecture that we have. And so I'll show you a bit of that as we go on. But that gives us a real idea of like what you're going to find in Palermo, for example. Once Frederick II dies and he has a couple sons and things are a little rough, and we have this very medieval period where we have the Angevins and the Aragonese, and then finally we have a Bourbon Spanish coming in, and we have basically 400 years of Spanish rule, some French mixed in. But and also this is when things are starting to get modernized. You also have like the Industrial Revolution is starting to creep in. We have 1734 is when they officially started the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, which is all of southern Italy and Sicily is the Kingdom of Two Sicilies, which was a very prosperous kingdom, all based on a feudal system that had been started by the Normans. And what is a feudal system? Well, it's like a plantation system. And so you have a very small 1% wealthy noble class and everyone else. And the everyone else works in the plantations for that noble class. And so this is what's going on for hundreds of years, which then makes this kingdom actually very wealthy and powerful in terms of its wealth. And so if you, by the way, I'm going to just put an aside and put in a little bit of a endorsement to consider going to Naples. And Naples is beautiful and fascinating. And don't listen to all the things that you've heard about Naples. You need to find out for yourself how amazing it is. The archaeological museum alone there is amazing because of Pompeii, but also an hour north of there in the town of Caserta is the La Reggia. And the Reggia is it's the Versailles of Italy that no one talks about because it's Southern Italian, because it's part of the Kingdom of Two Sicilies. It's the most amazing palace on this incredible piece of property with these wild gardens that are just miles long. I mean, it's an amazing place. It is the Versailles of Italy. So check it out, La Reggia in Caserta. Just put Caserta and Kingdom, and you're going to see in Google or wherever you use your browser, and you'll see what I'm talking about. So that's kind of a really cool thing to understand the power of the Kingdom of Two Sicilies. And then in 1860, that we have the Risorgimento, the unification of Italy, when Garibaldi arrives in Marsala, which is Western Sicily. And yes, Marsala is a town, and it's where they make the wine, which influenced, of course, the chicken. Okay. And his thousand red shirts land on the coast of Marsala, and they start to annex Sicily to this idea of the Northern Italian kingdom, taking over basically the South and unifying the peninsula. So this entire 3,000 years of human history that we're talking about indicates what you will do in Sicily. So, you may not like history, but it's really important to understand how the history is part of your planning of when you're talking about a Sicily trip. So Amuni, Sicilian, let's go. Amuni, we're going to keep going here and we're going to talk about traveling. So here's a map. You can see Taormina is in the northeast of Sicily, Messina province. And this is sort of like an idea of all the highlights, where these places are. You can see Marsala over there on the left side, and that is the western side of the island. Palermo North and Cefalù is another smaller town that's part of Palermo province. So this gives you a real idea of the map. And then when you look at it, here's your tourist version of it. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a tour of Sicily right now. So first of all, Sicily boasts how many UNESCO World Heritage Sites? Who knows the answer to this question? Let's see if you can answer the poll. And let's see if I have. Okay, so all right. All right, don't answer these questions yet because I'm gonna go back to this, okay? I'm gonna walk through this. I'm jumping the gun here. But there are a number of UNESCO World Heritage Sites in Sicily. I'm gonna give you 9 sites right now, and you're gonna tell me at the end of this what you think are the heritage sites. Sicily has more UNESCO World Heritage Sites than any other region in Italy. Okay, so 20 regions in Italy. Sicily has the most UNESCO World Heritage Sites. So the first one we're going to see is Valley of the Temples. This is in Agrigento province, and I'll show you where that is in a second. This is an amazing place that was started to be built in 600 BCE by the Greeks, and it's a number of temples that are in excellent condition. This is the Concordia that we're looking at. And here it is in the south part of Sicily. Agrigento's in the middle. So this is the premier UNESCO World Heritage Site. It actually is the first one that was ever appointed in the entire world by the UN, which is UNESCO is part of the UN, recognizing the heritage of human history. Okay. We also have this fascinating site, which I always people tell me, wow, I had no idea this was there. It's like the dark horse of Sicilian sites. Piazza Armerina is the town. The site is called the Roman Villa of Casale. It is 43,000 square feet of mosaic tile floors, all documenting um, life scenes from Rome, mostly hunting, because we believe that the senator perhaps who built this estate, because it really is a state. A villa gives us the wrong impression. We Americans think of a villa as just a house. It's not just a house. A villa is a plantation or an estate. So you have grounds and gardens, etc. In the case of the Roman Villa of Casale, it was a plantation. It was wheat and other products, and also it was a business center. It was a place where the owner held he would have parties. He would have host people for visits. It's in the middle of Sicily, and I'm going to show you where it is. Here it is, right in the middle. It is at the crossroads between, let's say, Catania and Gela, and then Agrigento. So it's where it's positioned is interesting. It feels like it's in the middle of nowhere, but actually it's on the crossroads of many, many places. So that is the Roman Villa of Casale, and it's a fascinating site. All the mosaic tile floors that were built between the third and fourth century Common Era during the Roman era. Then we have Mount Etna. Look at how beautiful she is. We are looking at Mount Etna from Bronte. So what you're seeing in the foreground here are pistachio trees. So we have a lot of pistachio in Sicily. Everything has pistachio on it, by the way. And what you're looking at here is the peak of Etna. This is a picture I took in May. So there's snow, and she's got snow on her now. And it's an incredible, incredible volcano. It is the most active and largest volcano in Europe, for sure. And you may remember this summer, she had a lot of eruptions this summer. It is a very pleasant volcano. It's not dangerous. She is always telling us what's on her mind. She's always steaming and smoking up, and we like it. Meanwhile, Vesuvius up in Naples, okay, Vesuvius is a different story. We don't know what's on his mind. He's corked, he's quiet, he's hot if you touch him, but we really don't know what's going on. And you basically are gonna have 3 hours to get out of there if something happens. Whereas Etna is very nice. We know what's on her mind. We prefer her to erupt because we prefer that over earthquakes. So Etna is one of the main sights to see in Sicily for sure. And there she is. And the size and scope of Etna is very hard to explain, but it is massive. It's just massive. And it's an incredible thing to witness. And there's many ways to see Etna. Montreal Cathedral. So I mentioned that Arab Norman architecture. Here's an example of it. This is probably the premier example of Arab Norman architecture. We're looking at the cloisters. I mean, I have a picture coming up that's going to show you the inside of the cathedral itself. The next picture is Cefalù. So Cefalù's Duomo was built by Roger II, starting in about 1130 Common Era. And so you see that Christ Pantocrator at the apse. It's just incredible. That is all mosaic tiles. That is gold leaf mosaic tiles. You see him glowing there and glistening. In the foreground, you're seeing a Baroque design and Baroque decor that was put on later, probably in the 18th century or the 19th century. But further up towards the apse, where you see the Christ Pantocrator and you see some of the angels below him and maybe a saint or two, that is Byzantine style mosaics that were built in the 1200s. Quite incredible. And here's another, this is all examples of this Arab Norman architecture you're going to see in Palermo. This is a mosaic that is in the Royal Palace, the Palazzo dei Normanni, and it is part of Roger II's personal quarters. So what you're seeing here versus what you're going to see in Montreal Cathedral, for example, this is secular mosaics. So it's kind of cool because you're seeing the lions, which is, very powerful animal for kings. They always want to associate themselves with lions. So that's what you're seeing here is the mosaics from, again, Arab Norman architecture. So this was, again, built probably in the 1100s, okay, because it's Roger II, and he lived between 1095 and he was 54 when he died. So mid 1100s. I can't do the math so fast, but 1150-ish. Okay, so there you go. So that is Palermo. There it is in the north, and that also is you could combine all those sites: Cefalù, Monreale Cathedral, and Palermo Palazzo dei Normanni, as well as a few other sites that have that Norman architecture, that Arab Norman architecture. Then we have Catania and the Sicilian Baroque. So here's another whole thing. We're going to fast forward in time and you're going to learn about the 1693 earthquake. 1693, there was a massive earthquake off of the coast of Sicily on the southeastern side off of Augusta. And from that earthquake, we had to do a massive rebuild because January 1693, not only was there one event, there was a series of events for a year and a half, and there were a series of earthquakes that were over 7 on the Richter scale, so they think. They didn't have the Richter scale in 1693, but we can assess from the damages and some seismic, these earthquake professionals can figure this stuff out. And that's what we assume is that they know from documentation, from writing, how many tremors there were, but they were over 7 is what we think. And so from this, you then have this rebuilding that has to happen in the 1700s. And so you have this architectural style called the late Sicilian Baroque of the Val di Noto. And 9 towns in southeastern Sicily make up this late Baroque. And I'm going to show you a couple of them right now. So there's Catania. It's the second largest city in Sicily. It's an industrial city. The center is very pretty, like you just saw the Duomo, and that's for Sant'Agata is their Duomo. But it's not one of the places that I put in my top 5 places for you to visit in Sicily necessarily, unless you're interested in World War II history. If you're interested in World War II history, there's an amazing museum there all about the 1943 Operation Husky when the Allies landed on the south coast of Sicily, and it took them 8 weeks to take Sicily from the fascists. So if you're into World War II history, that is a reason to go to Catania. Otherwise, your time is well spent elsewhere, in my opinion. Okay. Or if you're a breast cancer survivor, maybe you want to go to the Basilica here. That was the Duomo we showed. And you want to visit there to pray to Sant'Agata, to pay homage to this patron saint of breasts and women who have or people of breast cancer and survivors of breast cancer. Ragusa Ibla is an amazing place also, and that is again an example of this late Sicilian Baroque architecture. Noto is in that mix, as well as Modica, Scicli, Caltagirone. There's a whole bunch of towns, 9 towns, but more than that, there are many other towns that make up this late Sicilian Baroque. Syracuse is also in that same category. You can see this beautiful piazza. This again was a medieval town. After 1693, it was destroyed, and so they had to rebuild it. So we're looking at the Duomo on the left. We're just seeing St. Peter there, but that is a Duomo also where Santa Lucia has a sanctuary there, and she is highly, highly venerated. She's from Syracuse. So if you are a Saint Lucy devotee, or you're interested in learning about her, and she's the patron saint of eyes and insight and light, and also wheat and grain. And so I get all into that and the divine feminine. On my trips, I talk a lot about the divine feminine in Sicily, and how also these saints and their Christian divinities and these minor saints, and also the Madonna and Saint Joseph and all of these saints in the Christian world, how their veneration was transferred from pagan pre-Christian divinities into these Christian saints. It's a really interesting theme here in Sicily that I discuss a lot when you're with me on a tour. Um, Here's another site in southeastern Sicily. This is called Pantelica, and Syracuse and Pantelica kind of go together because Syracuse has a number of tombs. And one of the things to know about southeastern Sicily, I'm going to show you here on the map, is that southeastern Sicily is part of Africa. What? You say to me, what are you talking about? Because the African tectonic plate and the European plate meet where Sicily is. You have these two plates, okay? And southeastern Sicily is a limestone shelf that is part of the African plate. And then Etna is sort of in the middle. Here's Etna here. So you have the Eurasian plate and the African plate going up against each other. What happens? You have a volcano or a series of volcanoes. That's why Etna exists because of this friction. You need to release that energy somehow, and that's why you have that volcano there. But not only, you have Malta is in the south here, and you can also combine a trip to Malta. Malta is a fascinating place. Um, it needs more than one day. I was there for 3 days in February, and I thought, yeah, it really does need more than one day and more than 3 days, even. Malta is part of that volcanic, I like to say, volcanologists will probably disagree with me, but for us amateurs, from Malta to Etna, and then we go up to the Aeolian Islands. I'm going to talk about them next, I think. Yes, and you can see here the Aeolian Islands. Here's Stromboli. This is what Stromboli looks like. Stromboli is a volcano. You can see it's black. Okay, it's like Etna, but a small version. And then up to Vesuvius, that is your line of you've got a line of volcanic activity up the through to the Italian peninsula. And then you have the Strait of Messina, which is a big fault line. So you're going to say to me, Allison, with all this earthquake and volcano talk, is it safe for me to go? Yes, it is. So don't not to worry. Um, but you can see the Aeolian Islands also. And so there are 7 islands off of the north coast of Sicily. And there's also Ustica, which is up north of Palermo. There's Lampedusa, there's Linosa, there's Pantelleria. Lampedusa is part of the Egadi Islands, which is off the western coast of Sicily. Um, Along with Marettimo and Levanzo. So Sicily is basically part of an archipelago, right? So people ask me a lot about the islands because they're so beautiful. They're like the Greek islands in many ways. It's the kind of thing that, first of all, it's something you do in the summer between June 1st and maybe October 1st, okay? But you really need a day to get there and a to get back. So you have at least 4 days. I would not, you can't run to the Aeolian Islands. It's like going to Nantucket or to Martha's Vineyard. It's not an easy travel experience to get to them, especially if you're going to something like Salina. It takes some time. And also just to get on the ferry itself, gets to get yourself to the ferry to go to the Aeolian Islands is quite a trip. So if you're thinking about the Aeolian Islands, I would say you need at least 14 days in Sicily, and then you can add a couple days to go to the Aeolian Islands. If you only have 10 days or 14 days, spend them in Sicily. Because as you can see from what I'm saying, there's a lot to see on the main island. And you're on an island already. You don't need to go to little islands if you don't have time to do that, because there are some amazing beaches in Sicily along the south coast near Agrigento is my favorite place to see sandy beaches. I'll get into that a little bit more, but and boat excursions too. But to give you an idea, just to give you some preview of the Aeolian Islands, they're also incredible for the heritage that's there, and that's why they're sort of on this list of question about how many heritage sites are there. Then there is Selinunte. Selinunte is the largest archaeological park in Europe. It was a town destroyed by the Greeks built it, and then the Carthaginians destroyed it the first time in 409 BCE. It's a fascinating story, which I will tell you if you're on a trip with me. And here it is in southwestern Sicily. Definitely worth a visit. The cool thing about Salinute is you can actually walk inside the temples. You can't do that at Valley of the Temples, but you can do that here. And there are a number of temples that you can go inside and also sanctuary grounds. So it's a very rugged, fascinating place in southwestern Sicily. And then we have, everyone knows, Taormina. We're looking at it from I'm not on a plane, and I actually did fly over Taormina in a plane last year, but this is from a lookout over Taormina. Taormina is on the top of a mountain, Monte Tauro, and it's it's a medieval town that used to have a wall around it. And so the beach below was where the fishing village was, and Giardini Naxos is part of that whole fishing village concept. And we're looking at Isola Bella. And from here, the beach looks pretty good, looks pretty nice. But I have to say, if you saw White Lotus and you saw the beach scenes, they were not filmed in Taormina. They were filmed in Cefalù because Cefalù has a much nicer beach than Taormina. And seriously, it really does. So keep that in mind. If you're really into going to the beach, Taormina is not really a beach place, if you ask me. It's not the best beach place. They have nice pools. It's good to have a pool at the hotel if you're going to be there between June 1st and even October 15th, I'd say. You can make sure you have a pool in Taormina. But otherwise, don't count on the beach being so beautiful in Taormina. It's really pretty to look at from the distance. But of course, one of the big attractions in Taormina is the ancient theater. And the ancient theater was first built by the Greeks, and then the Romans built what you're looking at now. You can always tell Roman construction, by the way, by the red bricks, because the Greeks did not have terracotta bricks like the Romans did. So this is obviously Roman here. And look at the view. When you're sitting in the theater, you are looking at Mount Etna. It's quite amazing. And so the Greeks really understood how to position things. And so that's what you're looking here. So that's a very big attraction. There are two major uh, amphitheaters in Sicily. Siracusa is larger than this one in Taormina, and Siracusa I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. So know that, but there's other ones: Segesta, Morgantina, Palazza Creede. There's a lot of little ones. Tindari. I was just in Salunto, which is near my house, and they have ruins of an amphitheater there. But really, the two most extraordinary ones to see are the one here at Taormina, for sure, which has still theater. You can go and see pop music shows and some opera, or they have other shows here. I saw Elton John perform here in 2003. It was pretty cool. Um, some of our favorite artists do perform in the summer. So that's another thing when you're talking about booking your trip, you might want to look at the schedule of the Taormina Theater and see if you know an artist that's going to be performing there. Maybe plan your trip according to when that artist is going to be playing at the theater. It's a really great way to plan a trip to Sicily, is around the performances going on in the summer months. Between usually May 15th and October 1st is when they have performances in this theater, and certainly in the theater in Syracuse, which I'll talk about soon. So that is where Taormina is. You can see it up in the upper right corner there, and that's northeastern Sicily. All right, so let's go back to our questions. Which one of these, we've talked about 9 different sites, okay, and I'm going to put the poll back up, or I guess it's up still. Maybe I have to bring it up here again. And yeah, it's still up. I think it's still up. If you can see it on your screen, I'm not sure, but you can make a, which one of these is not a UNESCO heritage site? So of this list, Valley of the Temples, the Roman Villa of Casale, Mount Etna, the Arab Norman Patrimony Palermo, the late Sicilian Baroque of the Val di Noto, Siracusa, and the rocky necropolis of Pantelica, the Aeolian Islands, Saliunte, Taormina. Which of these is not a site? Can you answer the poll? I don't know if you can see it still. I don't want to end it because then I'm not going to be able to launch it. All right. Well, it doesn't look like you can still see it, I'm afraid. So I'm gonna move on, and we're gonna see if we can find the answer. Okay, let's see if we can find the answer. Slide. Taormina and Selinunt are not UNESCO World Heritage Sites. What do you think, guys? Are you surprised? Well, Pantelica, by the way, is always the one that people don't know, and that is because it has 5,000 tombs from pre-Greek times built into that limestone shelf I was talking about that is part of the African plate. So the Sicily people and people prior to them, um, 1300 BCE, 1400 BCE. They were built living in caves and building tombs in those limestone shelves. So that's part of why this is a UNESCO site because it's pretty fascinating. For those of you who love to hike or love to walk, I'm hosting a walking in Sicily tour in February. And one of the days we will be going to Pantelica and walking in Pantelica. It's pretty magical, I have to say. So, anyway, so there's your list. Those are really some of the biggest highlights of a trip to Sicily. So let's keep talking. So, how do you decide? And again, this what we're looking at here in this image, this image. And by the way, I took all the photos you're seeing in this slideshow. So this is Monorail Cathedral. This is the inside. So you're seeing that Christ Pantocrator image again. He is a very different Jesus figure. He is opening his arms and calling you into his light. The book he's holding in his hand, which you may not be able to see it so well, but it's in ancient Greek and it's saying, "Those who walk into my light will have the shadow behind them," something to that effect. So, this is a beautiful, beautiful image. And again, what you're looking at, those are all mosaic tiles. This is Monorail Cathedral. It's incredible. 63,000 square feet of mosaic tiles along all the walls and the floors in this incredible, incredible cathedral. It rivals St. Mark's in Venice, and it's just not as popular, not as famous because we just don't have good PR in Sicily until recently, right? So, what you see on the walls are all stories from the New Testament and the Old Testament. I like to say this is like Times Square for someone in the 12th century. This was built between, I think, 1174 into the early 1200s. William II, who is Roger II's grandson, built this he wanted to build it for his wedding, and he did get to finish at least the apse for his wedding. It's an incredible story. So anyway, it's like I said, it's like Las Vegas or Times Square for someone who was in the 12th century. Pretty amazing. So, think about what excites you. Palermo, the architecture is amazing. Cefalù, you have this medieval, enchanting place that's Cefalù with the La Rocca as the fortress up on the hill, and you can hike there. You can be at the beach. It's just a beautiful, romantic place, Cefalù, but very crowded now, much like Taormina. The two places are extremely crowded, very touristy. So there's benefits to doing all these things. And who you are, where you come from, where you live normally, what your days are like. These are all things that when I'm planning a tour, these are very important questions I ask my potential clients because I want to know how I can help them have a paced trip that they really want. The pacing of your trip is so important. You cannot run around and see everything. You'll exhaust yourself and not enjoy it. So part of what I do is really get into how do you like to travel? What is your life like day to day now? And then based on all that information, that's how I design a tour. So when do you hope to travel to Sicily? Okay, so here's another poll for you. I want to find out from you when you hope to oh, I could have relaunched that. Okay, now I know how you can do that. I'm going to launch the poll. When do you want to travel to Sicily? So, um, take a minute and answer these questions. I'm curious to know what your plans are. Are you planning to go in the spring of 2025? So, is it going to be March, February, March, April? Um, Oh, I have two springs there. Are we going to go in the summer of 2025? Do you want to go in September, October, the winter, which is going to be next year, so a year from now, maybe Easter in 2026, which is, by the way, I'm planning to host a tour in Easter 2026. I'm going to be announcing our 2026 schedule at the end of January. We're going to be at the travel show in New York at the end of January. And so by that date, which is the 24th and 25th of January, I believe it is 26th, 25th and 26th of January, we'll be at the New York Travel Show at the Javits Center. And we'll have our 2026 dates ready to go that weekend. So forgive me. So good. I'm looking at your results here. This is very exciting. I'm going to end the poll and I'm going to tell you what the results are. So it looks like 38% of you are planning to go in spring 2025. 25% of you in the summer of 2025. Good. October, 13%. Very good. And then a lot of you and a lot of you for Easter. I love it. I love it. But no one answered for September. That's interesting. Okay. Anyway, always interesting for me to hear when you plan to travel there. So I'm going to close this now. Let's see. Um, all right. So when do you hope to travel Sicily? Well, and people will ask me, like, when's the best time to visit Sicily? Well, it really depends on what you like to do and obviously your schedule. So the times that I just mentioned there are really the optimal times. Um, I'm hosting a tour at the end of January with a photography in Sicily tour, which I'll also be doing in 2026. That's a lovely time to be there. The weather is in the 40s and 50s, great for photographers because they're moving around, working hard. Um, Everything is green. We have the wildflowers are coming in, and that's why then in February I'm hosting a walking tour in Sicily because it's cooler temperatures. In February, we're between the 50s and 60s. We're in southeastern Sicily the whole time for that week. We walk in Sicily. It's called Wandering Sicily. I still have spots left for this coming February, by the way. And so this is great because it's a fabulous, it's priced really, really well. It's President's Week, so it's a great week to get away. So instead of going skiing, come to Sicily. Instead of going Caribbean, come to Sicily. Everything is in bloom in terms of the almond blossoms are blooming. It's all the hillsides are white with the almond trees. It's just beautiful. So February has many, many beautiful advantages. March is fabulous too. I have a lot of clients who like to go in March. And also, that's great because St. Joseph's Day makes it a really interesting time to be there. Again, you're now moving into the 60s in terms of temperatures, and you might hit 70, 75 on a couple of days. And then April is beautiful, and Easter is a big piece too. And when is Easter and how that the calendar moves? You know, Easter is moves according to when the full moon is and when the spring equinox is. So it's a fascinating time to be there because Holy Week has so many cool things to do. You really get to see Sicilians doing Sicilian stuff during Holy Week. And Easter itself is beautiful. And also Pasquetta, which is Easter Monday, is a fantastic day to be there. So, so Easter is a great time to travel there. And then really, I'd say um, May, lovely. Everything is the wheat fields are now full and green, and you have clover, which you have crimson fields, and you have mustard in season, mustard fields, and so it's crisp temperatures between 60s and 70s. It could get up to 80 maybe, but really 60s and 70s. And so it's a lovely time to travel there. I do my Enchanting Sicily tour from the last week to June 1st. So this coming year, we start on the 19th of May until June 1st. That is a fantastic time to travel there. By the time we get to June 1st, then you can start swimming. It's a little chilly still, but for those of us who like to swim, June is a beautiful time to be in Sicily for swimming. It's the water temperatures are warming up, the temperature in the air is starting to warm up. That first half into the end of June is really lovely. And that's when I host Solstice Sicily, which is around the summer solstice. And it's a yoga inspired wellness trip. And that's a week long. We stay at the same vineyard in Western Sicily in Scopello. It's beautiful. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. But those are, then I'd say stay away from July and August if you are not on an academic calendar. It's very hot. You're dealing with Europeans on vacation. I'd say, avoid if you can. And then come back in September. September and October, these are high seasons. May, September, and October for Americans traveling are high seasons. So don't think it's like, oh, it's the shoulder season in Europe. I can get cheaper hotels and I can travel easily. Not true in Sicily. Everybody thinks the same way you do. Americans are there. It is packed in September and October and in May. So plan now. If you're planning on going for May, if you're planning on going in September and October, start planning now. Get in touch with me now if you want to do concierge. And in fact, our portfolio for 2020 is filling up very quickly. So don't hesitate to get in touch with us and get in on our portfolio for the year. And also think about coming with me for the small group tours because those are all planned already and packaged. And it's really beautiful because I take care of you. And my staff will help you prepare and we'll get you all ready to go. And those are lovely, lovely times to go. November's also lovely. You're going to have a little bit more rain, but um, yeah, let's see. Oh, Ambika was, we had such a great time in that Solstice Sicily retreat, and we're going to be doing it again this coming June. So check it out. Um, so those are your prime times to visit. Also, I just had clients there for the week. Two different families were there during the week of Thanksgiving, and they had wonderful time there, wonderful weather. Um, and then Christmas is wonderful too for Christmas markets, and everything's decorated, and there's live Presepios. I mean, there's a lot of advantages for each time of the year, depending on what your interests are. Navigating the island, that is another big question. Of course, we all love the Cinquecento that's picked the Fiat 500 that's here. But really, the best way to get around the island is driving, whether that's private drivers driving you around or driving yourself. You can drive yourself. There's a lot of rural driving. Just know you have to understand the driving culture, and that's something if you decide to drive, I can help you prepare for that a little bit. But really, when you come with me, you just have me and Massimo, who's the driver I work with, in our 20-seat coach, and you don't have to worry about anything. And I hear over and over, I'm so Massimo's driving. And it's true because there's a different culture of driving there for sure. And so that's something to really consider. Is public transportation an option? Depends on where you are. The north coast of Sicily has very reliable, very on-time trains, also from Messina to Syracuse along the east coast. Other than that, trains are not so reliable, not so efficient. Buses are much more efficient. Sicilians mostly will take a bus to get around, and that's a very easy way to travel around and an economical way to travel around the island. But do not think of Sicily as like northern Italy in terms of the trains and how things run. It is nothing like that. We are really separate from the northern Italian system. Like I said, the north coast between Palermo and Cefalù, the trains run great. Between Palermo and Messina, the trains run very well. Once you start going to Trapani, once you start going to Agrigento, not so great. Once you start trying to get to Ragusa, etc., from Syracuse, it really depends on the day. It's a lot harder to do. It can be done, but much harder to do. So that gives you some information about navigating the island. I talked a little bit about the ideal length of an itinerary, but I will say that ideally 13, 14 days is your ideal length when you're talking about wanting to hit all those UNESCO sites, but do other things and have some relaxation time. That's really an ideal length. You could also do 10 days. 10 days is a very nice length of time where you can really be on both sides of the island. You have to be a little bit younger, a little bit faster pace, and also hit Agrigento in there. Um, if you have a week, I would say stay on one side of the island, make one trip, and then plan to come back to Sicily to do the other side. So Eastern Sicily for 1 week, and then come back another time and do Western Sicily, or vice versa. Maybe you could do Agrigento in the middle of that, but it's adding something in. Because again, navigating the island is not so simple. You can't get around so quickly. Um, and if you have 3 days, pick one city and spend your time there, and that's it. Um, so one of the things to also consider too, and we're talking about navigating the island, is flying in and out of the island. How do you do that? Palermo has an airport and Catania has an airport, and both of them are excellent. They're very small airports. Okay. But one thing to know is that if you have 7 or more days and you want to try and hit everything, or at least east and west, plan to do a multi-city round trip ticket. That means flying into Palermo and out of Catania, or into Catania and out of Palermo. Do not do a round trip ticket to one city. You will lose a whole day getting back to where you started. It's not worth it. Okay, I know that now we have direct flights and they're only seasonal. Okay, I want to be clear. The direct flights start sometime in May and end sometime around October 1st. So Delta is flying direct to Catania from JFK. That is starting sometime in the beginning of June and ending sometime around October 1st. I don't even know how many days a week, maybe 2 or 3 days a week. United is launching and I just saw it on their website last week for the first time. It wasn't before last week. I didn't see it. Sometime in May, United is flying from Newark to Palermo round trip. Okay. Again, 3 times a week. And then Neos, which is an Italian airline, has already been flying from Palermo to JFK round trip. And again, that starts around June 5th, going until around October 1st. So for me, for my clients who I encourage to go in May or April and September and October, these direct flights don't really help us. And additionally, they don't help because I really encourage you to do, again, think about how many days you have, multi-city round trip ticket, decide flying into Palermo, out of Catania, or vice versa. Now you can combine Delta with ETA and do maybe you fly direct to Catania, okay, from JFK, and then when you're flying out of Palermo, you do ETA to Rome and Rome to New York, for example, okay, or Boston, wherever you're going. Um, Same thing with United. United has partnership with Lufthansa and Swiss Air, so you can combine that for your non-direct flight. You can do that. So there's different combinations. We work with Travel Along of Summit in New Jersey. I'm a part of that agency. I do not do flights. I no longer do that since the pandemic. It's not a good idea. I highly recommend you use a real travel agent. I'm not a travel agent. I'm a travel Sicily travel specialist. So I don't do cruises or flights or anything. I have colleagues that do that. And even when I have to go to Sicily, I have my colleagues book my flights. It's highly recommended, and we will connect you with them if you are working with us. Um, what about accommodations, Allison? You've talked all about these things. Well, yes, where do you stay when you're in Sicily? Sicily has the gamut of five-star hotels and resorts and beautiful and luxury villas to farmhouses and small family run inns and rentals and Airbnbs. So there's everything in everything in between. I don't usually book my clients into five-star hotels unless that's what they really are used to. And the reason why is because I want you to have interaction with local people, and you're not going to have interaction with local people when you're staying at a five-star hotel. But you can also stay in beautiful little characteristic inns and have great family service and wonderful meals. And so there's something about that too. And so, in terms of when we plan and also the trips that I host, we have a combination of all these things. So, my level in the small group tours is generally 4-star and then characteristic inns, I like to say, because some of them have 3 stars, but the service is fabulous and the location's fabulous and the place is adorable. So, and it's clean and safe and all the things that you want. So, I have my places that I love because it's really about experiencing Sicily. So to give you an idea of my philosophy of how I work, um, I mentioned a little bit about heritage experiences, and really it helps if you do come with some information to us, but we can do a little bit of footwork to get you to the village and connected to a local insider to really get into your heritage. Anyone who comes to me that says they have Sicilian heritage, I am adamant about you trying to get exposure to the village or the town where your family came from. Because once you have that information and you understand your family history and your ancestors' mindset and what they did and who they were, or at least get an idea, it is life changing for us Americans. It changed my life when I went to Bagheria the first time in Porticello, where my grandfather's from. I'm living in Porticello now, basically in Santa Flavia. So it really is something so magnificent. It's hard to explain how cerebral and how it just gets into your skin and really changes the way you think about yourself when you know your heritage. So I really encourage that. And then there's so many other ways to make a trip to Sicily memorable. Really what I like to say is I want you to feel Sicily. And how do you feel the island? How do you feel this culture? It's not necessarily going to Valley of the Temples. You should go to Valley of the Temples. You should go to the Roman Villa of Casale. You absolutely should do an excursion because these things are important to understanding the island and the history. And for us Americans, we don't see these ancient Greek temples and we don't have a volcano necessarily easily accessible to SOA. These are fascinating things for us to do. But really, what you remember is you remember when you met Aldo. You remember when you met Maria. You remember when you were hanging out and all the guys in the piazza and outside their social club and you started talking to them and they wanted to tell you about their nephew who lives in New York. Those are the things that you recall when you're talking about your trip because you get a feeling about it. When you make baskets with Claudio or you visit a pottery workshop and learn how the ceramicist works. If you learn how you're in the market and you talk to Angela, the fishmonger, or you go on a little fishing excursion and buy fish, or you catch fish with the fishermen and then bring it back to Giuseppe's house and cook with him. These are the things that you recall, and these are the kind of things that I love to program. Walking tours and food tours through the Palermo markets and cooking classes where you're really getting your hands dirty. You're learning some of the primary recipes of Sicilian cuisine. Going to a winery, learning about Sicilian wines, Nero d'Avola, the Etno Rosso, Etno Bianco, Pericone, Cartarato, Grillo, Caricante, all these different grapes that we have in Solia. There are so many great Sicilian wines that you never heard of, the grapes and the wine blends that we have there. Forget about the things that you know from Northern Italy. I want you to taste Sicilian wines, the terroir of Sicily. So it's so important to open your heart and mind to what is there and walking through a vineyard. This is such an important thing, and learning how wine is made, learning about olive cultivation, learning you can be there at the end of October into November and go to the olive mill and watch them making olive oil. Help with the olive harvest if you're that inclined to do so. Go to see Baldo, go to see Salvatore and making ricotta and eating fresh ricotta out of the cauldron or eating fresh tuma, which is the first farmer's cheese right out of the cauldron, seeing the sheep and understanding how cheesemakers work. This is real Sicily. um and there's the arts and the beautiful things too that also add a dimension to your experience. So this is the theater I was mentioning. This is actually a show that was performed. I took my clients here. I don't remember which performance this was exactly. This is from 2019 though. It is from the Ancient Greek Theater in Syracuse. We see every May ancient Greek theater performed in the ancient Greek theater. So if it's Aeschylus or it's Sophocles or it's Euripides, whatever productions they're performing, and INDA is the Conservatory of Classical Dramatic Arts in Sicily, and every May and June usually the end of June, they perform two, three, or four plays, all classic Greek plays translated into Italian, modern Italian, and then produced in the ancient Greek theater. It is an incredible experience to go see live theater, world-class live theater that is in Syracuse with Italians, with Syracusans. And that's something I love to do. And so this is something fascinating to, again, plan your trip. If theater is something that you love, then plan your trip. Come with me for Enchanting Sicily in May, or plan to go in May, that is late May in all of June, to go to the theater. It's pretty fascinating. I love live music. I'm a musician myself, so I have musician friends all over the island. I love connecting my clients with musicians. This past year, we had a heritage trip with a family of musicians, and I connected them. They had a whole day with a musician playing zampogna, which is the bagpipes and tambourines and tamburello, in his Olive Garden. We can plan all kinds of things. Also, boat excursions. We were talking a little bit about beaches. All over the island, there's different kind of places to swim. My favorite place is Castellamare del Golfo, and someone had heritage from there. So, these are beautiful, beautiful things to do is go between June 1st and October 15th or October 30th. Going on a boat excursion, especially from Castellamare del Golfo, is absolutely fabulous because you have Lo Zingaro Nature Preserve right there, and it's just one of the most beautiful places in the world to go on a boat excursion. I mentioned Etna excursion. Etna is fascinating. I highly recommend planning. Even if you've been to Hawaii, even if you're like, I don't know about volcanoes, this is something I can't explain the power of Mother Nature and how you really understand it. And seeing this volcano and being on it and walking on an extinct crater, it's pretty fascinating. I mentioned hiking and walking and nature walks. And again, I'm hosting Wandering Sicily in February for this. It's going to be beautiful. Wonderful, wonderful walking and hiking in Sicily. And, this is in Cave Grande, which is similar to Pantelica, but you can get a sense of that limestone shelf and the canyons that exist because of rivers that cut through that limestone shelf over millennia. Off the beaten villages, off the beaten path villages, that is, modern sculptures. We have contemporary art in Sicily that people can't believe there's so much contemporary art in Sicily, but there are massive sculptures, and Gibellina is a whole town that's full of contemporary art. These are hidden corners. You might want to get away from it all. You might want to just enjoy the views. The views are incredible. This is from Enna, which is the belly button of Sicily. We have castles all over the island, which is amazing to see the castles. This is Cacamo, which I love. This is a castle from the 1500s. This version of it was built in the 1500s. It's an incredible castle to see. And then another thing to do in terms of planning your trip is around feasts and festivals. So I mentioned Easter, and many of you mentioned Easter here. There's also Carnevale in February or March, depending on when Easter is, and that is Acireale and also Sciacca. Those two towns have amazing Carnevale or carnival events. Also, for photography in Sicily, we're going to be, and this is the upper right corner, we're going to be there for the Feast of Sant'Agata. So up close and personal. That's why I'm bringing the photography group there, because I want them to be able to photograph the cittadini of Catania in their veneration, their fanaticism for Sant'Agata. Porticello, we have the Madonna del Lume in October. We have Good Friday in Enna. We have St. Joseph's Day in March. I mean, there's so many different feasts and festivals to go. Maybe you're crazy about ricotta and you want to go during a ricotta festival, or the couscous festival in September, because couscous is part of our cuisine in Sicily. So there's many ways to plan a trip in Sicily that include some of these feasts and festivals. And then, of course, we have folklore and arts and crafts. The ceramics are amazing. The legends and all of the things around them. We have the Opera dei Pupi, which is the marionette theater, which is a UNESCO recognized patrimony art form. And then so much art history and archaeology is here in Sicily. All over the island, there are small and larger archaeological museums. My favorite one is in Syracuse, and that is where this Venus is. There's a Roman statue that's a copy of a Greek statue. All over the island, there's amazing art and archaeological finds to see in the museums around. Shopping is fabulous. Taormina probably has the best shopping. Syracuse is a close second. Cefalù has great shopping, whether it's ceramics or jewelry or arts and crafts. There's just shopping all over. And then, of course, cuisine. So, did you know that cannoli are Sicilian? They are Sicilian. They are not Italian. They're not Neapolitan. They're not Roman. They are from Sicily, cannoli. And as I mentioned, I host a cannoli crawl here in New York City, and I have two dates coming up, the 14th and the 19th. I have spots on those. So if you're in New York area or you want to make a trip to New York during the holiday season, come and find me. We'll do the cannoli crawl together. It's a lot of fun. So food in Sicily is amazing. The pasta is amazing. We grow the wheat that makes the pasta. So what can I say? This is pasta alla norma with just eggplant and tomato sauce with a little basil. And most important is the shaved salted ricotta that's on top of it. So this is a consummate dish from Eastern Sicily. Then we have couscous, which is the upper left corner here. We have the Sfinge di San Giuseppe. We have rice balls, which is the lower left corner. So much for seafood. In Ragusa, we have these folded breads, which we call scaccia. Of course, then there's the brioche with the gelato, which is an oversized ice cream sandwich, which is amazing. Gelato in Sicily is amazing. caponata, which many people who are Sicilian heritage have grown up with caponata, which is the kind of ratatouille, and this can be made with eggplant, but it also can be made with octopus or tuna or swordfish, you name it. It comes from actually the capone fish, was the first fish they made. Caponata comes from that. So the cuisine in Sicily, granita, which is the Italian ice, and the fresh fish is incredible. There's hundreds of different fish that we have, all different seasons of fish. And then pasta con le sarde, which is pasta with sardines. This pastry in the middle here in the bottom is one of my favorites, is casatelle and casatelle, or depending on who you talk to, how you say it. These are like little calzones that are stuffed with cannoli cream, and they're made usually in Western Sicily, although there's a couple different places, but these are particularly from Western Sicily. And it's like, again, the dark horse of Sicilian pastries, served warm and like just out of the fryer with powdered sugar on them. It's amazing stuff. So anyway, Sicilian cuisine, I could talk for hours about that. Um, but think about how you want to travel to Sicily. And small group tours, which I lead, 12 people and fewer, are a great way to come. Part of the advantage of coming with me is we take care of all the details. All you have to do is pack. And the packages that I offer include pretty much everything except a few meals. And let me tell you, you don't want to eat the rest of the night. You're like, I'm just gonna have a gelato for dinner. I don't need to eat anything. We ate all day. So, I love hosting groups. I approach these tours and these itineraries like a college professor approaches a course on Sicily. And so you're with me, I frame everything, I give you the background, and then we meet the experts along the way. So if we're at Valley of the Temples, we meet an archaeologist. If you're in Palermo, you meet a historian who knows Arab Norman architecture. So this is how I approach these trips. Um, and I translate everything, and you get to meet local people, and we do really off the beaten path things. That's part of the advantage of this small group, is that we can go to small trattorias and family run places. We can stay in characteristic inns. We have a smaller vehicle. So there's a lot of advantages to that small group. So my small group tours include the January photography in Sicily. That's the end of January into February to go to Sant'Agata. This is co-hosted with Hunt's Photo in Boston, and Don Toothaker is the co-host, and it's a real workshop. So for photography people, this is a fabulous, fabulous way to see Sicily, but really to learn a lot about how to take pictures in a travel situation. In February, I have the Wandering Sicily walking tour. Every day we do a walk about 5 miles. It's and then mixed in our cultural immersion, cooking class, Modican chocolate demonstration. And we're in Ragusa Ibla the whole time, which is magical. It's just beautiful, beautiful town to be in. So you can really get into being in a city in Sicily for a week, which is lovely, and then getting into the countryside. So this is a beautiful tour. It's co-hosted by Nani DeFalco, who is the president of the Hiking and Naturalistic Guides in Sicily. So not just nobody. So I have the expert, and he's actually from Ragusa Ibla. And so having a local leading us on in throughout southeastern Sicily is just wonderful. Um, then I've got May Enchanting Sicily, which is 14 days. We can do a prelude in Taormina, but we start officially in Siracusa and then do a whole survey of the island for 14 days. In June, I have Solstice Sicily, and this is like a retreat, a wellness retreat, we call it. We stay actually, and although here in this picture I'm in Siracusa, but now we stay in Western Sicily in Scopello the week. We do a boat excursion. We do go to Palermo one day. Cleo Mallon is my co-host. She's an incredible yoga instructor. And by the way, we're hosting on the 17th of December an online yoga uh, winter solstice yoga wellness evening. It's free, so you can check out that on our website. Sign up for that to learn more and to meet Cleo and learn more about Solstice Sicily, which will be in June. And then in September, I co host with Giuseppe Shurka, who's a Sicilian chef our Stirring Sicily trip, which is 1 week, three cooking classes. We do a winery tour. You can do a prelude in Siracusa for 4 days, so make it 12 if you want. But we do wonderful cooking classes, and you really get into Sicilian cuisine. And we do a wonderful market tour and street food and all the things there. So that's a fabulous trip for people who like to cook and see place through food. And then October, I have Stunning Sicily. And this is, again, it's a 14-day trip. We start in Taormina. The highlight of this is being on Etna a couple days, and there's a beautiful harvest festival we go to in Zafferana Enea, which is a town. So stunning Sicily. We end in Castellammare del Golfo, and it's just October's a beautiful time to be there. The weather's fabulous, and we even went swimming the last day this year. It was October 29th. We were swimming in Scopello at the Tonara. So, again, small group enables us to do a lot of things. To find out about these, you can go to experiencesicily.com and you can click on the Tours of Sicily link and then scroll down to the different listings to see the day by day itineraries and the prices. And know that we have $300 off per person right now until tomorrow, Tuesday night at 11:59 p.m. This is a Small Business Saturday, Cyber Monday, Travel Tuesday special, and these are going to go away for a while. So this offer is going to go away for a while. So if you want to save some money on our small group tours, I highly recommend that you book this now. You can deposit now, and everything can be done online. Um, and then, of course, if you want to come meet me in person and talk to me, you can come to one of my stateside events. Coming up, I have the cannoli crawl here in New York. I have one this week that's sold out already, but Saturday, the 14th of December, Thursday, the 19th of December, I failed to put on here that yoga session that I'm doing with Cleo Mallon on December 17th. That's online. It's a Tuesday night. I think we're doing it at 6 p.m. It's free. So sign up for that. I'll be at the travel show with my team on the 25th and 26th. That's the Javits Center of January. And then mark your calendar because, this weekend we have Santa Lucia. In New York City. That's a whole feast thing we do, which is a luncheon, and 50 people come, and it's been sold out for a few days already. So mark your calendar for St. Joseph's Day. We'll be doing a similar feast for St. Joseph, who I also venerate and love, this patron saint of fathers and fatherhood and carpenters and those who toil for their work. He's a very powerful saint, St. Joseph. So I love to celebrate him with you. And we'll be doing that March 16th in 2025. And then you can also listen to my podcast. I have a couple episodes of On Sicily. So that's something else you can also do offline with me. So Amoni, let's go. Let's go to Sicily. Let's go. And so I'm gonna turn off the share here, and I will welcome you to ask your questions. I want to hear from you. I hope I did answer them before you even asked them, but of course, I want to hear from you about your questions. So feel free to turn your mics off and raise your hand. And if you want to write something in the chat too, because you don't feel comfortable talking on screen, or you can do that. So I see I have a question here already. Can you please touch on the services you provide and fee to plan a trip for me and my wife versus you consulting, reviewing a trip I plan? I visited Sicily for the first time this past September for 16 nights and focused on the east side of the island and would like to see the west side, which I've been told is somewhat more rural on my next trip. Okay, so the difference is quite a lot because when we do the concierge design service, again, that's based on the number of days you're traveling and how many people are in your trip. And so, off the top of my head, I want to say I don't remember, like 7 days, it's like over $2,000, for example, for us to do your planning and support you while you're traveling. It's a very hands-on service, the concierge service. We're with you on WhatsApp, and I'm in touch with you the whole time you're on your trip. So this is part of the service that we provide. So that's very different versus doing the phone consultation, which is like for 7 days, $375 or something. I don't remember. I have to look at the list. But that's a big difference. And phone consultation, you book everything, you negotiate the prices of everything with the suppliers, you pay directly. We do everything for you with concierge. You pay us in American dollars, we pay everything out for you in euros. It's very, very customized, very, very like it's a concierge service. That's exactly what it is. So the service fees are very different. And in terms of the difference between East and West, um, yeah, I mean more rural. Sure. I mean Sicily's rural. But yeah, it depends what you want to do on the west side and also when you want to go. Because summertime on the west side is a great time to be there because the sea, the islands off of the west coast, there's a lot of reasons to go over the warmer months on the west side of the island. But Palermo alone is a fabulous place to be and a fabulous place to use as a base all year long. So keep that in mind because Palermo is just, there's arts going on, there's musicians, there's so much to see, museums, etc. And then you can use it as a base to explore Western Sicily and even Agrigento and then Cefalù, of course. So I hope that helps answer that question, Don. Who else has a question I can answer? You can turn your mic off and jump in. You can write something into the chat. Oh, I see. Here's some more in the chat. Okay. Please, can you put the link to your website so I can see all your tours? Yes. Okay. So my website, I'm going to type it here, HTTP experience Sicily, okay.com. And we'll send out for all of you who attended tonight, I'm going to send out the recording link and also you'll get also the link to the tours page too. And know that again, tomorrow up to tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. we have this special going on. Sorry to be camera shy tonight. How hard is it to be vegetarian vegan? Can you give some examples, wondering more generally how veggie friendly it is? It is Sicily. Okay, so let me explain something about Sicilian cuisine. We call it cucina povera, which is a term that's used all over Italy. And generally, cucina povera is is vegetarian because it's poor. It's the common man's kitchen. And so the common man could not really afford meat, could not really afford the fish, certainly if it's in the middle of the island. So many of the dishes are vegetarian by nature of it just being the common man's cuisine. Um, a couple of my favorite restaurants in Syracuse, for example, are vegan. So they exist. Vegan exists there, and we can help you find those places. Um, and of course pasta itself and all the pasta and a lot of the condiments for pasta, pistachio pesto and we have this thing called pasta alla norma is vegan. We have this thing called pasta con le sarde a mare, meaning pasta with sardines, but the sardines are in the sea. They're not on your plate. So there's many things, the many there's we also make we call them meatballs, polpette, but they're made with zucchini or they're made with eggplant or they're made with some peppers or something. So there's caponata, for example, is vegetarian. So there's many vegetarian options. There's mixing and matching for sure. So it's possible without a doubt. Um, Jennifer, I have to run. Thanks for a wonderful and informative. Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for being here. And I watched Anthony Bourdain and was worried it was going to be tough. Yeah, please don't base your opinion about Sicily on the Anthony Bourdain episodes because it's those are made for television and he has to have some conflict and he has to make it interesting. And I was watching and I was like, oh man, really? You really, really? It really upset me actually. And those were also filmed quite a long time ago. So things have changed so much in Sicily. Um, it's really, really evolved. This island has changed significantly in the past 30 years. So what you know from 30 years ago does not apply to today at all. So keep that in mind. It's really, even from COVID, things have changed. And then White Lotus happened and everything's changed since the White Lotus even. So there's that. In terms of its tourism, it's a very It's a very young tourism industry. It's really the past 20 years, 15 years that Sicily's tourism industry has really come into its own. They're still learning about service there. They're still understanding what we Americans want, what Germans want. They're still figuring this stuff out. So that's part of why my business exists. I founded Experience Sicily because I wanted not only to give you really profound experiences in Sicily, but also to make it easier for people to travel in this place that I love. Because I know from having started traveling there in 1996 was the first time I went there. No one spoke English. It was very difficult to get around. It was very difficult to figure out things. And so I had this concept of like, what if I could make it more accessible to people and smoother for them to travel there? And then people could really discover this incredible place. So there you go. Who else has a question? Anyone else want to be on camera, ask a question, send me something in the chat? Anybody? I know there are people listening still. I see you there. Did I really answer all your questions with my presentation? Everyone's questions were answered? Anyone? Pam? Mindy? Laura? Camille? No one? Okay. All right, so it was really helpful. I'm glad. I'm glad it was very helpful, Laura. Thank you so much. Um, so I hope that well, I'm just going to close up because it's 8:40 almost, but I want to um yes, good. I'm glad, Pam. My background is in communications and marketing. So I worked for Columbia University for many years doing communications and also New Manus College of Music at the New School. So my background is having worked with college students and making sure that they got what they needed and and understanding like where am I supposed to go and what classes am I supposed to register and when am I supposed to register for classes and how to dorm, all those things. So that's where I'm coming from in terms of being a tour operator is I wanted to make, like I said, I wanted to make traveling in Sicily easy and delightful. I want to delight you. And that's the objective of Experience Sicily as a tour operator. So I'm hoping that tonight has given you the background of information you need to help you make some decisions. Maybe you want to travel with me. I love hosting tours. It is my calling to bring people to Sicily and share this culture with people. Um, it's really a pleasure for me. So I hope that you would consider coming with me and looking closely at what the day by day itineraries are. And if I can answer any questions, or Elizabeth or Anna can answer any questions for you about what we do, let me know and let us know. And we're happy to do that for you. All right. So if no one else has a question, I'm going to sign off for the evening and look for my email in the next couple days and then you'll have links and you'll have the recording, etc. But do go on the website experiencesly.com and you'll find all of those discounts listed under the tours page, okay? So thank you all so much for being with me this evening. Have a wonderful rest of your night. Ciao ciao. Take care.